Hi, my name is Sean Longhurst. I'm the CTO of Enterprise Works and the product lead for Conductor4SQL. Today in this video, I'll be introducing you to Conductor4SQL, explaining exactly what the product is, its key features, as well as its business benefits. Conductor4SQL is a tool for administrating a large number of Microsoft SQL Server instances from one central point. By large, I typically mean hundreds or thousands of instances of SQL Server. We support any version of Microsoft SQL from 2005 upwards, from Express to Enterprise Edition, and virtually any Microsoft operating system, from XP to Windows 8, or even the later versions of Windows Server. Conductor4SQL enables organizations with hundreds or thousands of instances of SQL Server to be able to communicate, control, administer, synchronize, or audit them from a single point with a few clicks, thus saving enormous amounts of time and effort, as well as adding key business benefits, which I'll discuss shortly. Before we begin, just to clarify some terminology, we refer to the instances of SQL Server you control with Conductor4SQL as clients or client instances, and the ones you do this from we refer to as the central master. So let's begin with the key features of Conductor4SQL. Firstly, we have the centralized query feature. This feature allows you to retrieve information from your SQL Server environment from one central point. For example, if you wanted to know what your largest databases or tables were across thousands of instances of SQL Server, or, for example, if you wanted to get SQL Server system information from, say, DMV views or configuration info from SPconfigure across all your instances, you could do it using this feature. Even if you wanted to query user data, like a sales table in real time across all your instances, you could do it with this feature. Essentially, you can execute any select statement across all your instances in near real time, and we will consolidate the result for you at one central point for analysis. Secondly, we have the centralized command feature. This feature enables you to execute any DML or DDL across your entire SQL environment from a single point. So if you wanted to, for example, create new tables or stored procedures, or perhaps add new columns, or even insert master or configuration data across all your SQL instances, you could do it with this feature. Conductor4SQL will make sure all these changes are applied to your SQL environment, as well as audit all the DML and DDL that occurs on your SQL Server environment using Conductor4SQL. The next feature is centralized file distribution. In a nutshell, you can use Conductor4SQL to send files like DDLs, batch files, etc. to all your SQL servers if need be. This can be a very powerful feature when combined with other key features of Conductor4SQL. Then we have the data synchronization feature. This by no means is meant to replace SQL Server replication, but anyone that has experience with implementing SQL replication across hundreds of instances, especially on unreliable networks, will know how frustrating and time-consuming it can be with constant monitoring and troubleshooting of all the replication agents involved. This feature specifically creates a copy of data that exists at your client instances, for example, a sales table, at the central master. This is updated in near real time, so you need not query each individual instance. You can query all the data at one point. This can be used for centralized reporting or near real-time analysis, or even as part of a DR strategy. We have a key feature, which is centralized auditing. Once Conductor4SQL is in place, we will automatically audit all your SQL Server instances. We will audit server-level events like the creation of SQL Server logins and databases. We will also audit database-level events, so we can track objects being created or dropped, for example. You can easily search these events. If you ever want to find out when a specific table was created or dropped, for example, you can use this auditing feature. This is an all-round great feature to know what is happening in your SQL environment, as well as when it is happening and who is doing it. Lastly is probably the most important design aspect of Conductor4SQL. When we looked at other tools out there, for example SQL Server Management Servers or other third-party tools, if you wanted to execute a script, for example, across 500 instances of SQL Server, these tools would try to make a connection to those instances at that time. So if, for example, you could not connect to 20 of those instances because there were network issues or power failures or the SQL services weren't running, these would fail, and you would have to manage this and make sure that this happened at another time. The key difference with Conductor4SQL is that it uses a guaranteed message-based communication layer. So, in the previously mentioned example, you would not have to worry about these 20 instances not being available. As soon as network connectivity was restored or the power came back up, Conductor4SQL would ensure whatever needs to happen, happens, and in the correct order, of course. This makes Conductor4SQL even more powerful when used in geographically dispersed SQL Server environments across inconsistent networks. In terms of key business benefits, these speak for themselves when you think about the key features. Risk management being the first one. Your SQL Server environment will be audited by default, tracking key events that you can report on. Real-time reporting. As mentioned, the data synchronization capability allows a centralized near real-time picture of your data that exists at your client instances. Standardization and compliance. With the query ability, you can check configurations and metadata across all your instances, ensuring they comply with organization standards. You can also report back on things like what version of SQL you are running everywhere and how many CPUs does the server have, for example, if you wanted to do a SQL audit for licensing purposes. And lastly, resource efficiency. The amount of time your DBAs and on-site engineers use to administer and support such a large SQL Server environment will be drastically reduced, allowing them to focus on more important tasks that add real value to the business. In conclusion, if you like anything that you heard in this brief introduction, please be sure to watch the next video in this series, where I'll be doing a hands-on demo showing you all the features mentioned in this video, so that you can see them in action and know exactly how they work. Thank you for your time. For any further queries, please contact EnterpriseWorks Sales.